Hey, what's up, guys?
Greetings.
Sorry for the wait on this one. Posted some PvP clips, and I got a bunch of comments coming in asking for the build, so I'm just gonna run through this as fast as I can. Most of the build I already covered before in a different video, kind of more in depth on why I was putting things into what, so for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that again. I'll just glaze over where the points are in the skill tree and what items I'm running. It's been a completely blind run so far, other than kind of actively trying to avoid using whatever I've seen as the super meta builds. So don't be too surprised if you do find some other cool combos that work better. But this is just what I've got going so far, and I'm hitting well over a million on mobs for PvE, and I one hit most players like, way above my level in PvP. So I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm feeling strong. All right, starting through 5 out of 5 into lunging strike, enhanced lunging strike, and combat lunging strike for the berserking. Going 5 out of 5 into Hammer of the Ancients, and if you can get affixes, this is definitely the first one you want to stack on. It's your main damage dealer, so try to get any items that are going to up this as much as you can. The Enhanced Hammer of the Ancients to follow that up, and Furious Hammer of the Ancients, giving you the extra damage for the amount of fury that you have, and that stacks with basically everything else, trying to get that up as much as we can. Next, 3 out of 3 into Pressure Point, trying to get the vulnerable. 3 out of 3 into Endless Fury. Basic skills generate 15% more fury with two-handed weapons. We only use two-handed weapons, so always generating more fury. Into the defensive skills, really this is where we need kind of an item that's going to give us at least something into all of the defensive skills. Because you're going to want to be able to use all of these, and not having to put your points into the actual items is pretty huge in terms of being able to spread those around into all your passives. So no points into actual skills here, but we'll go 3 out of 3 into Imposing Presence for the health, 1 out of 3 into Outburst, trying to unlock the tough as nails. We'll go 3 out of 3 into that. And the really important part of it is that all of our thorns, so everything that ever does damage to us, is going to get the bleeding effect applied to it. Then over to the brawling skills, we're not putting any points into the actual skills again. I'm not trying to stack up cries, or I've seen that really frequently, so I'm just trying to do something different. Gonna go 1 into aggressive resistance, trying to unlock the prolific fury, getting the extra fury generation while berserking. We'll go 3 out of 3 into that. Then to the weapon mastery, again, we're not getting any actual skills out of here, but there's a lot of passives in here, so we're going 3 out of 3 into pit fighter, 3 out of 3 into no mercy, 3 out of 3 into thick skin, 3 out of 3 into defensive stance, 3 out of 3 into counter offensive, and then 1 out of 3 into hamstring. And that's just trying to work with the bleeding effects that we're going to be doing. So it ends up that everything that ever damages you and everything that you ever deal damage to ends up getting the bleed effect applied to it, and then that gets the slow effect applied to it, which is crowd controlled. So all of those can add up to a bunch of different easy affix rolls and stuff to do extra damage with. For our alt, we are going with the boys, Call of the Ancients, with both of the nodes at the end, of course. And our final passives, 3 out of 3 into Heavy Handed, 4 out of 3 with Wallop, because of our items, got a little bit extra into there. 3 out of 3 into Concussion. That one's really nice, given the 45% chance for a 3.2 second stun. And we only use two-handed bludgeoning weapons, so that's just you always have that running. Finally, for our key passive, Unbridled Rage is what I use for PvP. Just because time to kill is so freaking low in PvP that you just want the highest damage hit that you can get, really. Try and one-tap people. So keeping up your fury in the middle of a fight isn't really as important as just landing one super big hit that just ends them. But then if I'm doing PvE, I find that Unconstrained is just a lot more consistent. You can keep your fury up pretty much full 100% of the time, and you can spam the hell out of your hammer when you're hitting mobs. So it just keeps the damage uptime fully going, and you never, I don't know, you just don't get stuck in that situation where you're trying to build up with really weak attacks, trying to get one strong attack. It's just everything is always strong. So switching over to the item side of things, almost nothing that I'm wearing is going to be perfectly min-maxed with their rolls. I've got kind of the framework of what I'm looking for on my items, but until I've got everything like over that 800 power mark that I'm really aiming for, I'm not too concerned with trying to get every single thing on it as a perfect roll. But I will point out some of the more important affixes that have been really helpful so far. Starting with the helmet, like I've got the 24 maximum fury on that one. It's not a perfect roll, but it's quite nice because with the maximum fury thing that we've got going, that's just an extra 24% damage to our core skill as well. And then the basic skill attack speed and total armor. I found that armor has been a lot more helpful for me than resistances. So in all of my gear, I'm really looking for total armor and things going to help me get the most damage and the most fury that I can. For the gems, I'm running all rubies. That's just proven to be the most helpful so far for my survivability. Also, if we go down to the razor plate here, this isn't something you can really guarantee that you're going to find. So I think in PvP, especially in the later side of things, the thorns have been falling off for me a lot. Like that's a level 65 item, and I'm almost level 80 now. So when I'm doing PvP, the thorns is not helping me nearly as much as it is when I'm running through dungeons in PvE. So there's no reason that you couldn't swap that out for really, really good rolls on a high armor chest with good affixes that are going to give you extra armor, extra life, and all that kind of stuff instead, and have that be just as good or better for PvP. The game just hasn't been out that long yet, so I don't have everything that I want to have multiple sets for PvP and PvE. This is working fine so far for me. Onto the gloves, again, attack speed has been really important for me. Lucky hit chance is nice to have. There's a lot of things that are rolling off the lucky hit. The critical strike chance is way more important when I'm looking for the affixes. And the +3 of the Hammer of the Ancients is just beautiful. You want to find that definitely if you can. On the pants, I would have loved to roll those thorns into some type of better damage reduction, base damage reduction, extra armor, but 2 damage reductions with decently high rolls on them and a good decent roll on maximum life. It's working pretty well for me. And again, even on the actual aspects, you can see this one's only got a 12 out of 20. I have higher aspects, I haven't really had a need to change it out. It's not min-maxed at all. There's plenty of room to get more on top of this. The Penitent Greaves is another one that I just haven't swapped out for something that I think would be better for PvP. The chill effect hasn't really helped me very much in PvP, and basically all of the other stats are almost useless. Crowd control duration is not something that I really need at all. Things stay crowd controlled when they're hitting me when I'm hitting them regardless. The movement speed is nice, but I would way rather have the triple evade and way better affixes that I could have than that for PvP. But this is working well for just not having to switch out and going back and forth PvP, PvE. Your two-handed bludgeoning is definitely one of the more important items for us because we're only ever using that for our attacks. Can't control that it's going to roll overpower, but if you can find critical, that's what you want on there. I think probably the most ideal is crit, core, strength, and damage to close. So I've got basic skill damage in there instead of having crit, but overall pretty good rolls on all pretty good affixes that you want to have for damage. And as well, I'm running topazes. I just use my left clicks a lot when I'm getting my fury generated, but there's absolutely no reason you couldn't use sapphires in there and take advantage of vulnerables to try and get even higher crit numbers for those hammers. I haven't had the need to do that yet. If I run into more obstacles in PvP, I might try and take that further and just focus on getting as much hammer damage as I can instead of kind of the split PvE, PvP that this is working out to be. But for now, the whole bunch of extra damage on the basic skills works out just fine. For everything else, you definitely want swords because you want as much crit as we can get. So then when we're looking at the affixes on it, we definitely want at least crit, core, and strength. And then I think it's probably debatable whether it's better to have plus all stats for extra strength and the armor and the extra crit chance and all of that stuff, or damage to close, but I'm very happy with that one. If I could, I would just copy that over and put it over into this one's place because this one got basic skill damage, which I would just rather have critical on that. But other than that, it's pretty well got everything that I'm looking for. Two-handed sword, crit again, damage to stunned, damage to close, a bunch of strength. This is all good stuff. All of the affixes that I'm looking for are just things that are going to apply directly to how many of these things are all going to stack up to a massive hammer drop in one hit. Mother's Embrace has been so far pretty much irreplaceable for me for PvE. Getting that 40% of your resource cost refunded is amazing, but it's not reliable really in PvP the same way. You can't group up 5 players or guarantee that they're going to be in the middle of a mob every time that you fight them. So you could easily switch this one out because item power on this is very low. But again, this has just fallen into the place of it's so useful for me in PvE, and I haven't had enough problems to switch it out for PvP, but you definitely could. The other ring, though, I think is pretty much perfect rolls, exactly what I'm looking for. It's given me max roll on Maximum Fury, almost max roll on Resource Generation, almost max roll on Maximum Life, and then max roll for Critical Strike Chance. That's just absolutely beautiful. I couldn't ask for anything better. It's exactly what I'm looking for. And we're going skulls for the gems on this one. We want as much armor as we can get. The necklace is another one that I've had a hard time replacing simply because it's got the max roll on it for the all defensive skills. And if I could find another one at a better level with some better rolls on it, I'll definitely swap that out. But the +3 to all defensive skills is just a must-have for this build. Even if you get the +2 and that's all you can work with, you got to have something to plus all defensive skills to free up all those points for the passives. Now for the last part of my build, and I want to give a fair warning here, there's almost no chance that you won't be able to make something better than this. I've been trying to avoid using the ones that I've been seeing posted the most as just like the essential, you must have them, like the exploit glyph. Everybody wants to use this one to get the vulnerable going. It's definitely very good. There's no reason you shouldn't use it. I've just been avoiding using it because I want to try and make something that's not that work. So I guess the way that I'll break this down is I'll just go over each section of the tree, and you can pause if you want to copy exactly how I've done it. And then I'll just go over the main glyphs that I'm applying to the board here. So for the first glyph off of our first section of the tree, we're going with the territorial glyph. For every 5 dexterity purchased within range, you deal 7.9% increased damage to close targets. That'll continue to go up as it levels up. Then the additional bonus, you gain 10% damage reduction against close targets. So we can see on there I've got 29 dexterity in total inside of that glyph, which is bringing me 45.9% damage to close enemies, plus the damage reduction. I kind of went a little bit all around in here, getting the amount of dexterity that I needed, and I just wanted some of these extra passives, damage to close enemies, physical damage, and then I went up this side for the extra, 300 armor and 10 strength in total. And then I connected the board up here, and the board I connected with first is the Weapons Master board, with the Legendary node up here in the top left corner, over here to the right, with this glyph socket being Might. Grants 95% bonus to all magic nodes within range, and then the additional bonus being 8% damage increase while wielding two-handed weapons. I'm not going to tell you that this is the best one to have, but it's just what I've been doing so far and what's been working for me. Kind of the thought process behind it was that I wanted to have all of these physical damage nodes unlocked as well as all of these armor nodes unlocked. It's another 400 armor I'm getting out of here. 500 armor. So I found that armor has been really important for PvP. I'm thinking that's probably why when I'm fighting really high levels, I one-tap them and they don't one-tap me. I think it's just because I've built more into armor. And so instead of working my way around and getting the legendary node for this one, I just went for 3 of the rare nodes and a bunch of the magic nodes. So it's damage up here, attack speed, the 20% physical damage, 200 armor on that one, and the 20% physical damage up here. So this is basically just all stacking damage and armor in this tree, and then trying to get a little bit more out of that bonus with the bonus to magic nodes in range. And the last section of the tree that I've attached so far is the Warbringer one, with Hungering Fury up here on the top left and Raw Power down here on the bottom left. Glyph I've got in socket here is the Blood Feeder, which is for every 5 dexterity purchased in range, you deal 6.1 increased damage to bleeding targets. And like we were saying before, everything that we attack and everything that attacks us is always going to be bleeding, so that's always going to run up. And one of the main reasons I wanted to do this one was for the additional bonus, because it's the only one that I saw that gives critical strike chance. And again, because of those passives, everything that we damage and everything that tries to damage us is going to get the bleeding effect on it, so that's just always going to be running. And importantly, it has the 5% increased chance to critical strike, which is one of the main things I'm always looking for. The first one to get a big critical often wins the fight in PvP, so the chances, bringing up your chances of winning that fight a lot. As for the actual nodes in this one, a lot of them looked pretty appealing to me, so I've kind of gone around. I've got down here into Raw Power for, again, the physical damage and strength. Up top, Hungering Fury, Maximum Fury, and Fury on Kill. then all the way down around to the legendary point. For every 75 fury that you spend, gain 12% of your maximum life, which is 827 for me as fortify. And that's going to come up a lot, especially if you're doing PvE. This keeps you alive like crazy. When you're spamming the hammer and you're getting all of that life back, it's a lot. Then we wrap up over out here into the next rare node, Guarded Advance. More damage while fortified, and all of these little magic nodes are damage while fortified and fortified generation. All fury generation up here, and more physical damage down here. And I do want to wrap around down here as well. I really like the rare nodes in this one. So going down here for more maximum fury, more maximum life, and with our build, that maximum fury is twofold, of course, right? It's 8% maximum damage when we've got that fury bar filled up. So all of these nodes giving more fury is 4% damage, 4% damage, and it just keeps adding up and stacking to that hammer. So I want to quickly go through and just look at the actual stats of the character as an easy to comparison to see where you're at to where I'm at here. I've stacked as much as I can into strength, because strength is just straight up damage and armor, and it's so important. But if we look down into the offensive roll stats, this is where we can get a better idea of the amount of damage we'll be doing and how our affix stats are adding up. So our critical strike chance is 24.1% as a base, plus the 5.3% against injured enemies, plus the 5% from the glyph that we just showed. It's not showing here, but the 5% against bleeding enemies will also be added onto this, so we're getting a pretty decently high chance to crit strike. And then our crit strike damage is well over our overpowered damage now, 292%. But then that's also adding with all of these extra things that we've got going down below as well, right? So vulnerable damage, extra 53, damage versus stunned, and we stun a lot, so the extra 70% on that will be happening a lot. Damage versus close, that'll always be happening. Damage versus bleeding. Fortified will always be happening. Physical will always be happening. And then our core skill is up to 374% as a base. So without actually adding them up, you can see that they're all stacking up to quite a high percentage. So when that max roll critical does go off, it's a one tap on pretty much everybody, and you're hitting into the millions with, well, above $1 million in PvE. So that's it. That's all I've got going so far. I will definitely end up mixing things around a little bit, especially as I get to my max rolls on my gear going a little bit further forward ahead, and definitely messing around with the Paragon. That'll happen more, but this is how I've got it going for now. So if you've been struggling with PvP so far, at least hopefully this gives you a foot in and something you can build off of and try around with. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one.